my question about your statistics on rape culture, don't you think that maybe a lot of women who experience this don't want to come forward? If you don't mind me giving you an example, you're Jewish, so you know Long Island, New York. There was a case in Long Island, New York, where there was a pediatrician who, no, seriously,
No, I'm waiting to hear the case. I'm just, not everyone in Long Island is Jewish. But don't worry, I don't think you're an anti-Semite.
Thank you. But more importantly, in this town, it came forward that like there was a few people that he molested, and then more people came forward, and it came out being like dozens and dozens, and like there was this whole escapade where people didn't even say anything until other people came forward.
Yes.
So don't you think that maybe people are scared to come forward, and that it's possible that those statistics could be not entirely as accurate?
Okay, so it's possible that statistics are somewhat low, but the idea that they are 244 low out of 250 is wrong, right? So there's a vast difference between 0.6% rape rate and 25% rape rate. So yes, if you're asking are there men who are raped, who are intimidated about coming forward, of course that's true. And of course we need to make it easier for people to come forward and report rape. I think, by the way, that it is also very important that in cases of rape that we fulfill an evidentiary standard, because when I'm talking about you have to castrate or kill people, they better damn well be guilty, right? So I want to make sure that the people who are convicted are certainly guilty. But that said, I think that one of the grave tragedies is that there's so many people who are raped who don't come forward, and then they talk later about the rapes that they've experienced. The world would be a lot better place if we could encourage those people to come forward. If they did come forward, I want rapists in jail. I don't want them out on the streets. So when people say rape culture, my problem is that it's just too vague. I don't know what that means. Who in the United States is pro-rape? I need to hear who out there really?
Well, I think that
other than Bill Clinton.
I think that though, there's a lot of, wouldn't you say though that, I mean, we're on college campus, I see like a lot when I'm out, like guys taking advantage of girls. I don't think they're thinking, oh, like let me go rape this girl, but couldn't you say that there's a very close narrative between...
I think there's an irresponsibility culture. I'm not sure that there's a rape culture. And what I mean by that is that, what you're talking about, first of all, if there is a culture, again, I don't know who's out there saying rape is good, but I think there are people out there saying that getting drunk and having sex with random people is good. And if that leads to a higher rape rate, if there's a correlation there, that's a problem, obviously. But the reason I don't like the term rape culture is not because I'm pro-rape, it's because I'm anti-rape. I think that we should make very clear that rape needs to be stopped. But the idea that everybody out there is on the verge of raping women, which is sort of what rape culture suggests, is just not true, and it's a slander against men.
So my question was about abortion, and I just wanted to know why exactly do you think a first trimester fetus has moral value?
Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells. If left to its natural processes, it will grow into a baby. So the real question is, where do you draw the line? So you're going to draw the line at the heartbeat, because it's very hard to draw the line at the heartbeat. There are people who are adults who are alive because of a pacemaker. They need some sort of outside force generating their heartbeat. Okay, are you going to do it based on brain function? Okay, well, what about people who are in a coma? Should we just kill them? Right? The problem is anytime you draw any line other than the inception of the child, you end up drawing a false line that can also be applied to people who are adults. So either human life has intrinsic value or it doesn't. I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise?
I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value, not necessarily being a human alone.
Okay, because, so when you're asleep, can I stab you?
I'm still considered sentient when I'm asleep.
Okay, if you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you?
Well then, no. I guess not. I mean,
I'm glad you answered that, because I have no interest in actually murdering you.
But that's still potential sentience, and it's still a potential...
I agree, it is potential sentience. You know what else is potential sentience? Being a fetus.
The issue with that... the issue I have with that, though, is that if I'm in a coma and I'm not, doing anything to anyone, I'm not causing any issues amongst the world, whereas an unwanted child may or may not be a burden to people.
Okay, well, there are lots of people who are unwanted, right? I mean, there are lots of people's parents who are unwanted, right? We're a bunch of college students. You know, the problem is that now you're shifting the argument, right? Before you were making the argument based on the intrinsic value of a life based on sentience, and now you're talking about the level of burden that somebody presents as a separate moral argument. Okay, I don't believe that you being a burden on somebody is justification for them killing you, as a general rule.
I'll leave it at that, but I appreciate you and thank you.
No, thanks.
I actually really agree with you a lot more than I disagree with you. It tends to be among reasonable people. So,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, really my question that I have for you essentially stems from an article that you've written, essentially why atheism is more than bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, you essentially say, essentially without God, we can't really have morality, or without a soul, we can't really have choice. But you seem to be presuming that the existence of the soul and existence of God kind of basis. Do you have any justification or evidence for those presumptions?
Sure. So the existence of, so I'm going to make now an Aristotelian / Aquinas argument for the existence of God. So the basic idea, and I'm going to try and boil this down so it makes some sense. The basic Aristotelian argument for the existence of an unmoved mover is the idea that there are a bunch of, every object around you has actual and potential, right? It has an actuality and it has potential. So if you have a candle and it's made of wax, it has the potential to be a pool of wax, but that potential is not fulfilled unless something acts upon it. The only thing that can act upon an object and make it fulfill its potential is either another object that has its own potential, or something that is pure actuality, right? It does not have any potential. It's just actual. It just exists, right? So the idea in the Aristotelian argument for God is that if you don't want an infinite regress of causes, if you don't want an infinite regress of things that have actuality and potential, and then something has to actualize it, something has to actualize it, and something has to actualize it, you have to come to the unactualized actualizer, right? A thing that just is, right? A thing that just exists. And as Aquinas says, this is what we call God, right? This thing that exists and has the capacity to actualize the potential of other objects. And so this is his argument for the existence of God, that otherwise you get an infinite regress, and there need not be an infinite regress of causes. Now, this is a basic Aristotelian argument, as I say, that is shaped by Aquinas. There are other good arguments about this. One is based on the principle of sufficient reason, this idea that we have the capacity to understand the universe. So if you believe that you have the capacity to understand the universe, which most scientists and atheists believe, that we have the capacity to understand the universe, are there limitations to that capacity? So the principle of sufficient reason suggests there are no limitations, we just don't have enough information, but if given proper information, we can understand every aspect of the universe. If that's the case, then you have to ask, okay, that creates a system where, to understand things are contingent on one another, right? If a baseball hits a window, that's contingent on me hitting the baseball. So again, and this is true for every scientific law, laws of nature, right? If there's a law of gravity, then we try and discover why is there that law of gravity, where did that come from? And so the idea is that if you're a believer that we have the capacity to understand all of these things, and that we have sufficient reason to understand the universe, then there has to be something outside the system of contingencies that got the ball rolling in the first place. Right? A timeless being that is pure existence, again, it's a very similar argument. A timeless being, it has to exist outside of time because otherwise you'd be fulfilling a potential. Things inside time always have a potential to be fulfilled, but things outside of time don't have a potential to be fulfilled. So I've described to a being that has pure existence, that exists outside of time, and that has the potential to actualize anything. That's God. So that's the argument in favor of God. Now you don't have to buy it, but that's the evidence-based argument in favor of God. The problem that I have with scientific materialism is that all of human society is based on notions that are directly contrary to scientific materialism. And the reason that I say that atheism is not a good basis for a moral system is that atheism is not the basis for any moral system. There's no guiding principle. Right? I can make an equally valid argument on one side or another based on a system where there is no God, and not only no God, no being that created the universe in order to perform certain functions. So if you read Aristotle, what Aristotle says is that human beings were created to perform a certain function. Sorry, long-winded answer. That human beings were created to perform a certain function. That function was to reason, right? This is Aristotle's idea. And so every object was created to perform a certain function. Okay? If you don't believe that, if you believe that everything arose spontaneously or randomly, that just came about through pure chance, then you can't say that there's an is-ought gap that David Hume points out that is unbridgeable. You can't get from is to ought, and you have to make up your own moralities. That's the basic argument.
I actually agree with you with a lot of that, right? I don't think atheism is a point that we can really build off.
I'm not saying, by the way, that atheists can't be moral people. They absolutely can.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you are.
Yeah.
I simply, so how did you rule out, though, a naturalistic explanation, though, for the existence of reality? Because it kind of sounds like a God of the gaps argument, right? Or it's like, or an argument from incredulity, right? So essentially, I can't think of a better argument, therefore my argument, or therefore God.
No, I don't think that that's right. I think that the God of the gaps would say, things I don't know, I'm going to attribute to God. I'm saying that in order for anything to be actualized, there has to be something, and this is a basic principle.
Okay, thank you. Just really quick with that point and stuff. So if you're not familiar with like theoretical physicists, or particle physicists,
yes.
like Sean Carroll and Lawrence Krauss, right, where essentially
they say things kind of wink and blink out of existence. Yes.
Yeah, with essentially things function different on a quantum level, right? So we live in a realm of Newtonian physics, right? So different, essentially, realm of domain of applicability as they
yes.
Right?
No, I understand this argument. Yeah. So the idea, the Aristotelian Aquinas answer that would be, you're still suggesting that there's a system in which that happens. Where does that system come from?
Okay, yeah.
Because otherwise you end up, basically, you end up with three final analyses of the possibilities of the universe. One is the unmoved mover, one is an infinite regress of causes, and one is the brute fact, the kind of Bertrand-Russell argument that there are just brute facts in the universe and we can't understand them. Well, that doesn't really explain anything, the brute fact thing. Right? That is a God of the gaps argument, right? That's saying we can't explain it, it's just a brute fact we don't. That's the